Hello once again, witchy people. Welcome back to my Cobhamstead, and today I wanted to talk about dead nettle, specifically purple dead nettle, which is sometimes called red dead nettle, and also henbit. Now they are both part of the Lamium family, but they are different. Magically, they're the same. So first of all, I'm going to tell you about, now I only have dead nettle here. I don't have any henbit. So I'm going to tell you the differences between them. And yes, I did take notes. So the henbit leaves, the easiest way to tell the difference between henbit and dead nettle, this is dead nettle, is the leaves. Now not only are they a different shape, so henbit leaves, I'll try and get some photographs up. They don't have stems, so if you can see that, there is a definite stem from the plant. Usually they come in pairs. So as you can see from, if I show you the back, this bit, the leaves are in pairs, so they grow pairs and pairs, and you can see all of these leaves have, if I can get it on there, little stalks, but you can see it most on that one. So henbit leaves don't have stalks. Now dead nettle, they have nettle shaped leaves. They're kind of like a soft arrowhead, I guess, and they are covered in hairs. They're quite soft as well, so you probably won't be able to see, but they are covered in hairs. Now henbit leaves are a different shape. They're wider, they're more sort of kidney shaped, but very deeply scalloped. So they've got a lovely sort of like frilled edge. And although they do have hairs on, not nearly as many. Okay, dead nettle, you can see the flowers. Now obviously you can get white dead nettle. The flowers are quite tiny. They're almost orchid-like. And they sort of grow just under the leaves. Now henbit, you'll quite often see the flowers are always, nearly always, pinky purple. You don't often get the discoloration leaves here, the red purpley leaves here on henbit, although you can do. Henbit flowers are much larger. I mean, they're not big flowers anyway, but they are larger than this. Apart from that, they are very, very similar. So they both have the opposing leaves. But I say the leaves of the henbit don't have a stem. They grow direct from the main stem. And the main stem of both plants are square. I don't know if you can see that. They are square. Try to get, you can sort of see it there. So that's henbit. Now medicinally and nutritionally, they're both very similar. So nutritionally, they're both high in vitamins A, C and K. They're high in fibre. They are really good to eat. The flowers and the leaves are good, and the stems are good to eat. Mostly the flowers and the leaves though. If you're going to eat the leaves fresh and add them to a salad, then just use the top leaves, the very top, sort of like this part of the plant. The young leaves, they taste better, although it is quite bitter tasting anyway. You can also dry them out and you can cook them. So you can actually take off the leaves and cook them, use them a bit like spinach sort of thing. But yeah, you cook them down, add flavour to them. Like I said, they're really good for you. Now medicinally, they are similar, but not exactly the same. So medicinally, I'm going to tell you about the dead nettle first. So purple or red dead nettle. And really, the only difference between purple and red dead nettle is they're both exactly the same. It's the deep dark colour of the leaves. Some people call it red nettle because the leaves are a reddy colour, and some people call it purple dead nettle because of the pinky purple flowers, which can get quite dark. It's got loads of other names. Blind nettle, deaf nettle, archangel nettle, all sorts. Anyway, so the dead nettle, purple dead nettle. It's an astringent. That means it tightens skin tissue. So if you have large pores, you can make an astringent, a lotion out of it, and use it on your skin, and it will help close the look of the pores. It's I've got to get this right, a diaphoretic, which means it makes you sweat, and also a diuretic, which means that it makes you go to wee a lot. It's a purgative, so it makes you poop. It's a bit of a laxative. And the leaves of the dead nettle are extremely good. If you clean it, you can take the leaves off, mash them up a bit, make a bit of a poultice, and it's very good for small wounds. It stems bleeding. It stems any kind of hit, and it's also really good for bruises. Now, henbit. Once again, henbit, not this. This is dead nettle. And the reason I've got some is because I went out foraging today and got tons of it. All in my local area, all within sort of like not even a quarter of a mile radius, all really close to my home. So henbit, like I said, I'll put some pictures up. It is diaphoretic, so it makes you sweat, and it's a diuretic. No, it's not a diuretic, it's a diaphoretic. It's also laxative, purgative. And it's also really good for rheumatism. It is an anti-rheumatic. It's also a stimulant. And henbit also is a febrifuge, so it reduces fever. So that's the differences. So there are lots of ways to use I'm talking about dead nettle, though, like I said, magically, and eating wise, they're exactly the same, really. So dead nettle oil or henbit oil, it's antibacterial, antifungal, anti-inflammatory. It's very soothing if you've got slightly broken or very dry, cracked skin, especially on your hands. So the easiest way to do this is pick a carrot oil, one that's really good for the skin. So almond oil is very good, unless you have an intolerance or an allergy to nuts, then olive oil is fine, just plain old olive oil. So you get some greaseproof paper or some baking paper, or tissue if you prefer. I like greaseproof paper or baking parchment because the drying herbs don't stick. So you lay out some paper, parchment paper, tissue, whatever. Lay out quite a thin layer of your collected dead nettle or henbit and put it on a windowsill to dry out, or somewhere warm. An airing cupboard would do it as well. Somewhere warm, or yeah, but like I said, putting it on a windowsill where you get direct sunlight is probably best. And you dry it out. It can take anywhere between 3 and 10 days, and you'll know when it's dry because it's all crispy and crunchy. You then place the dried plant in a clean, sterile jar, or clean it before you dry it out, I should say. Add your oil to cover it, and then put it in somewhere dark for anything from 2 to 3 weeks. Take it out, strain it. If you want to, you can add other essential oils. Lots of people like to add lavender to it. I don't. I like to add bergamot to it because I love the scent of bergamot. But if you're looking for healing properties, look for essential oils that will help whatever the problem is that you want to help heal. So, if you don't want to pour it in and put it in a jar and pour on oil and wait for 2 to 3 weeks, there is a quick way of doing it. So what you do is when the plant matter is dry, you put it in a oven-proof bowl, not metal. So Pyrex, glass, something that is oven-proof but not metal. Cover it in your oil. So wide pan. A deep, wide pan is better rather than a bowl sort of thing, because you want to just cover it, and you need to cover up all the stems and all the leaves and everything with the oil. You need to immerse it in the oil, but only a thin layer. And what you do is you turn your oven on full, whack it up, and heat it up for a good quarter of an hour, 20 minutes. So the oven's really hot. Then turn it off and put your tray of herb and oil into the oven when it's off, and leave it overnight, 4, 5, 6 hours at least. And next morning you get up, it's all cooled down because obviously it's not going to heat up much. You strain that, and once again, as you strain it, the best thing to do is either put it in a muslin cloth and really squeeze it out, or when you strain it, get a ladle or a spoon and press down all those bits of herb and all those bits of plant matter to really get the oil out and all the goodness of the plant out. And once again, seal it up, keep it in a dark place. So halfway through, if you can, with the oven time, halfway through, take it out and give it a little bit of a stir. But try not to let too much of the heat out of the oven. So that's a really good way to make dead nettle oil or henbit oil. And like I said, now you can even use this to anoint magical tools, but we'll get to that in a minute. So on to magical uses for dead nettle. Now it's called dead nettle because it doesn't sting. It's not associated with any workings with the dead or the spirit world really at all. So you can use the dried out leaves and flowers to add to an incense blend. You can use the oil, as I said, to anoint yourself. You can even put it in the bath, anoint your tools with it. You can add fresh or dried plant to any spell. Or you can use fresh plant as an offering on your altar, especially during sort of like Ostara, that sort of time of year. Or as an offering to bees, butterflies, any kind of pollinating insects, so bees and butterflies especially, and the fae folk. In spell workings, you can use it in incense to lift moods. It's very much a mood lifter, to increase willpower. It can make you feel more grounded. It's very good for grounding. It increases the strength of any spell because it, where it kind of like can absolutely run amok in a garden or on a piece of wasteland, even once it gets its roots in, it will spread everywhere. So that sort of tenacity and that strength you use to strengthen a spell. Overcoming hardships, because once again it kind of takes over a place. So overcoming hardships and obstacles, it's very good for that. And any healing magic, it's really good for healing magics, and whether that's mind, emotion or spiritual healing, ever so good for that. So in folklore, the purple dead nettle was known as making the heart happy. So it's used to dispel darkness, dark moods, negativity, negative thoughts, and for overcoming fear. So you can use the flowers and, like I said, the plant tips as if you were using them in a salad to make tea. So you just steep it in hot water, add honey to it, or a kind of sweetener. If you're vegan, don't use honey. And it's really good as a tea, and you can use that as a magical tea. You can also add it to a magical meal or a ritual meal. It's not safe for pregnant women or breastfeeding women, I should add. So because it is a diuretic and it can make you sweat, it can give you the runs, that sort of thing. It's also been used as a mild, very mild aid to sleeping. So it's used for easing arguments and discontentment and to help integrate people and situations. It's also used to attract beauty and harmony, and because it has this tenacity and it produces so many seeds. One flowering plant can produce like 2,000 seeds. It's also good for use in spell work to do with prosperity, abundance, and even wealth. It's also very good for any spell work for determination, if you need determination, and also for use in self-motivation, magic workings, but also to help loosen your inhibitions. So if you're one of those people that is really nervous to get up and talk, have a little bit of red nettle or henbit tea and you'll be well away. If you are loose-lipped, shall we say, and there's no filter between the brain and the gob, don't have it. If you do not need your inhibitions loosened, don't take it. But like I said, it's mostly associated with revelry, joy and happiness, and any joyful gods or gods and goddesses representing happiness. Now you may think there are not many. Of course, it's also a very good representative of Ostara, because it sort of starts up in March. You'll see the purple flowers everywhere. Excuse the noise, it's my dog. Buckley. Thank you. Okay, so the main goddess it's associated with, and I've got to get all these, and this is going to be a whole long list of gods and goddesses, and I'm going to pronounce most of them wrong. The ones I don't tell you about and just tell you where they come from, I'm not pronouncing at all, because a lot of Mexican gods, things like that, I am no good. I couldn't pronounce them even if I tried. So, and this is when I go back to my notes because I have a lot of it written down. So the first one is Euphrosyne. She was a goddess. She was one of the three charities, which in Roman would be like the three graces. And I think the others were, Thalia was for festivity. What's the other one? Eudaimonia was for happiness. But Euphrosyne was joy and mirth. And I think that's the Greek god. I'm trying to think what her male counterpart was. Euphrosynos, something like that was her male counterpart. But she was like the god of joy and mirth and... Don't lick me, Barclay. So you also have the Greek god Gelos, who was the divine personification of happiness, specifically laughter. Now most of these figures I'm going to mention will be female, because most of the female goddesses, most of the goddesses are more associated with happiness and joyful and childbirth and that sort of thing. Barclay, excuse me, can I? Yes, thank you. So there's also, right, so let's go back on. I'm going to mention the main ones first. So Hathor, who is an ancient Egyptian goddess, and she's most well known for having like the head of a cow. There's Norse gods. There's Balder, god of happiness. Inanna, she was the goddess of joy and peace. Roman, there is Persona, who's the god that eased weariness, and Angerona, she was a goddess who relieved people from the burden of sorrow, grief and pain. So those are the main ones. After that, it all becomes a bit vague, because basically you're just associating gods and Henbit and Dead Nettle with gods who are also associated with joy. So I'm going to reel off a few, and I'm going to get most of these names wrong. Okay, so we have Lithuania has a god of spring, joy, peace, and, funny enough, agriculture. Patrimpas. The Hathor is a European goddess. She's the goddess of March. So it's kind of like Ostra, who's the English goddess of March, and Ostara. You have the Mayan goddess of love and beauty, who's Itzel. Right. Some Greek gods and goddesses that were associated with happiness are Iambe, who was the goddess who, her job was to make Demeter laugh when Persephone was thought to be lost. Demeter was Persephone's mother, and Iambe was the goddess who basically was there to make Demeter laugh and to keep her joyful and to keep her spirits up. There's Koros, who's the god of exuberance and like mega joy. That's Greek. Horme, which is the god of self-motivation and impulse and forcing yourself to do something. Eutychia, who was the personification of happiness, and Commodia, who was the personification of happiness and amusement. That's all Greek. Of course, in Roman you also have Maya, who's the goddess of spring. Celtic and Gaul. Okay, there's a lot. There's Fand, who is the goddess of happiness and pleasure. Angus Og, who is the god of youth, love and beauty. Bran, obviously god, Bran, and Brigid. Brigid is healing, and Bran is the god of health and happiness. And there's also, obviously I mentioned Ostra. So Slavic gods and goddesses. Actually, there's only two. They're both gods. There's Belobog, who's the god of sun, light, hope and goodwill, and Belun, who is also a god. In Africa, they have Eshu, who's the god of beginnings and balance. Oba-Nani, who is the god of marriage and domesticity and protection. There is also and this is where there's Micronesian gods, Tibetan gods, Babylonian gods and goddesses. Samkaat is the Babylonian goddess of happiness. Tibetan is Tshogyalma. See, I can't say it. I've got it written down. My handwriting's atrocious. The Micronesian goddess is Kurupian. I don't know. Anyway, so Chinese gods and goddesses. Now, I'm pretty sure that a lot of these sort of more Asian places, they have more gods than goddesses of happiness, which is quite unusual because Western, it's more goddesses. So there is Pu Xing, Fu Shen, who's a star god of happiness. Sai Shen, who's the god of joy, and also sunlight of god, and Chi is the god of happiness. Now, Japanese, I'll put together Japanese and Shinto together. Japanese and Shinto gods and goddesses. There's Hotei, who's the god of happiness, laughter, and the wisdom that you find in contentment. Among the 7 gods of good fortune it's also a male god. Fukuro Kuchu, I think, is the god of longevity and happiness and wealth. Uzumi, also a god, not a goddess. Bishamon, who's the god of happiness, but also the god of war, which is quite funny. Oh, crikey, I'm trying to think now. Okay, Letitia is a goddess of happiness, and Lelita is an Indian goddess of happiness and playfulness. She's a child woman god, but she's happiness and playfulness in all forms, whether that be childlike happiness, sexual happiness, it's all forms. She can also be a little bit of a trickster. Peru has Cocamama or Cocamama, Mama Coco, cacao. Coca, that's happiness and health. Of course, you also have, like in the Roman gods, you have Bacchus and Greek Dionysus, and also Comas. Now, Comus was Bacchus's son, so it's Roman, and he was the god of revelry. You also have Felicitas. Felicitas, not to be confused with Fortana. Felicitas was a goddess of happiness, basically. I don't know what the dog is doing. There is a Lakota god called Wopa, who's the god of happiness. And in Hindu they have Sunarta, not too sure, also god of happiness. I think that's it. So, colours and gemstones that are associated with red and purple nettle and henbit. Obviously, most purple gemstones, but also yellow and orange gems, especially amber, because they represent happiness. Also, like amber's like the main one. Any sort of pink, purple, red gems can be associated, and those are the colours associated. It's quite a broad spectrum. Apart from that, it's more associated with the day than the night. At night, the flowers close up slightly, so it's more associated with magical workings during the day. But any god or goddess associated with Easter or springtime, Brigid, for instance, can be associated with red nettle, purple nettle, henbit. I'm just going to call it dead nettle. So anything to do with springtime, joy, happiness, Ostara, these are the things that you can associate also with dead nettle. So quite a wide range. When it comes to other associations, it's kind of like a make up as you go along. Now, the reason is, as I said, there aren't really that many specific gods and goddesses that people work with that are associated directly with happiness or with integrating people and like specifically joy and happiness. So, you know, it's really hard to associate specifically maybe you've got something for your path. So it is one of those plants that is incredibly useful magically. It's incredibly useful medicinally, and it's very, very nutritious. And if you want to use it within your practice, I think the best thing you can do is to suck it and see. Try it out and see what feels really good to you and what associations you want to feel with it. Like I said, colour associations are pinks, purples, but also oranges, yellows, that sort of thing. So yes, mine's getting a little bit droopy now because it's been out of water for a while. So now you know the differences medicinally and to look at between henbit and purple or red dead nettle. Like I said, magically it's all basically the same, and nutritionally it's all the same. And I hope that helps in some way. Like I said, it's a really great plant to have around. It is classed as a weed. If you pick it, if you go foraging for it, it can't really be mistaken for anything else. Henbit and purple dead nettle are basically, can only be mistaken for each other. And neither are poisonous, both are nutritious. They're also high in fibre. Did I mention they're high in fibre? They're very high in fibre. Yeah, try it out. I found it really difficult to try and grow it in my garden. However, if you plant it and then it dies out, don't worry, because as long as it's had flowers there, it will, or at the base, it's not the actual flowers, it's here. I've been told this is where you get a lot of the seed pods, this bit here, at the base of the leaves, is where they seed from. I don't know if that's true. Yes, they'll seed themselves, and once they, so I would grow them in a pot. Once they start going, apparently they never stop. I just go and just go and gather mine from the local area. There are a lot of dog walkers in my local area and a lot of cats, so I always pick them with a disposable glove. I wash them well, I dry them out, and I do like the heated oil method of getting all that goodness out of the plant, because I can use that magically almost anywhere. Simply because that heated oil I think is also cleansing it slightly. You do really, really need to clean off these plants very, very well. They do attract a lot of insects and wildlife. So no matter where you're picking them from, make sure that you clean them well. That's it. Dead nettle. Nothing to do with the dead, everything to do with joy. There you go. Thank you for watching, witchy people. I'll be back very, very soon. Bye for now.